Hi there. Welcome to The PrevenTable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Well, welcome to The PrevenTable. I am not Nichole Dawsey. I'm Jenny Armbruster. I will be your host for today as we will be talking with your favorite host, Nichole Dawsey, who is going to be passing the baton as she has transitioned to Alabama and a new role and lots of changes happening for Nichole and Prevent+Ed. I am excited to be here as the host of The PrevenTable. Nichole, hi. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good and really weird being on this side of the mic.
Yeah, you've never sat on that side of the table, huh?
Not for this one. Nope.
Okay, well, this should be fun. I do feel like we're doing a very big role reversal.
I know
here.
This is so weird, but it's going to be great.
That's okay. So, 16 plus years at Prevent+Ed,
Yep.
catching all of our listeners up. If you remember, Nichole moved to Alabama at the end of June, beginning of July. I, Jenny Armbruster, assumed the role in the leadership position at that time. And Nichole, tell us what you've been up to in Alabama.
So end of June, like Jenny said, my dog and I, Priscilla, we moved to Birmingham, Alabama. I took about 2 weeks off, and then I started working as deputy director, again, role reversal, at an organization called APC, or the Addiction Prevention Coalition, in Birmingham. Doing lots of different things. It's like Prevent+Ed on a smaller scale. We have about 10 staff. Budget's about $1.5 million. They do a lot of work in the prevention space, a lot of work in recovery space, and connection to resources. So a lot of similarities. So deputy director with that since middle of July when I started. And then December 1st, I will be transitioning to the executive director role down at that organization.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. The leader of the organization for the last 6 years, Carrie Wimberly, she is retiring. And so it's I've been watching her for the last couple of months and meeting all sorts of people, and proud to say we've bought some of the Prevent+Ed school-based programs.
Yes.
So Prevent+Ed school-based prevention is now alive and well in the great state of Alabama. And actually, as we're recording this episode, we have Winning Friendships happening down in Birmingham, and we also have O to B drug-free happening in Birmingham.
I think I remember a few years ago there was a partner that we were working with that kept talking about us going worldwide, and we laughed at them, but here we are, in St. Louis and Birmingham, so we are well on our way to worldwide programming.
That's right. And what I can honestly say, as somebody who has been teaching the programs both in St. Louis and in the state of Missouri, but then also in Birmingham, and you didn't pay me to say this, the programs work no matter where you are, no matter what kinds of kids. Did a program last week with high school students in Birmingham, predominantly non-English speakers. And we were talking about alcohol, and the program works. Doing it with fifth graders at an urban school in Birmingham, O to B works. Passing the egg from student to student and talking about the liver. It works no matter where you are, and those puppets are popular no matter what state you're in amongst kindergartners. So I am a believer in our programs, and when I realized that APC didn't have them, and Carrie said, one of the things you've done is really grow prevention. We would like to do more direct service with kids. We'd like to bring you on to make that happen. I was like, well, I know exactly how I can make that happen, but I'm gonna need some of my programs, I'm gonna need some of my materials, and I'm gonna need the brains of some of my people to help make that happen. And so we've created a great partnership, I think, across some states to be able to bring the programs.
No, it's been very exciting, for Prevent+Ed and APC. And I think that it really gives us an opportunity to continue to see. I think we know, and you and I have both had the opportunity to work at Prevent+Ed for a long time.
time.
We know we believe in the programs, and we have done our best to be the spokespeople and the cheerleaders for the program and help try to convince everyone else they work. And so it is really refreshing, but not surprising to hear that that's translating even in other states and other school districts with young people who have not been familiar with our work and have continued to see it. So I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about kind of what's happening now.
Yep.
So let's kind of look at in the rearview mirror a little bit, and then kind of look at what's to come in the future. So thinking back, we have joked, and I think it was on the podcast back in June before you moved, that we kind of grew up together.
Yep.
And we've spent almost 2 decades together doing this work. So question for you:
Yeah.
What do you think is what do you think has been your kind of biggest accomplishment, or what would you love to see be your the thing that you're really leaving with Prevent+Ed? Because I know there's several things, but as you're, I'm sure, have been thinking about your time and changes in your life, what are you most proud of? What is that thing that you're leaving Prevent+Ed that you're like, yes, that will always have a little bit of Nichole in it?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, well, not to sound too cheesy, but a lot of the things that I'm really proud of, I wouldn't have done if you hadn't pushed me to do them. So some of the things that we had done while I was at the organization and while I was leading the organization, like peer support or expansion of offices, even really the mobile unit. I really don't know that I would have ever thought of those or ever pushed us there if it hadn't been for you and some really other great minds. So I can't really take credit for that at all.
But you can take a little bit.
Well, I don't know. I feel like in however many years that's going to be your thing that you say is going to be one of your legacies. But I do think that the thing that I hope is a part of my legacy is the work that Prevent+Ed has done to pay more attention to different groups of people that we had typically not always paid attention to. When I got into the role of executive director, I had some staff, both staff of color and white staff, say, we have to do something different. And I really didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know how. And I was really scared, quite frankly. And part of me was also okay, I've got so many other things to pay attention to. I don't think I can pay attention to that also. Until then, it became glaringly obvious that I had no choice but to pay attention to it. And so while we were certainly behind the curve in a lot of ways, we had started to pay attention to racial equity as an organization before 2020, which is when a lot of organizations really knew that they had to be different.
Yeah.
And I think exactly. And I think we knew that we needed to be different and do different around 2018, 2019. And I am very proud that work continues. I am very proud that we have a very robust internal committee that is doing the work, which you are now a part of.
Absolutely.
And
yes,
it makes me, it's very bittersweet, because when I see the work that you all are continuing to do and the pictures, it is so sad for me, but it is also exactly the thing that's supposed to be happening.
Right.
That's exactly what's supposed to happen, is that the work is not about you. It's not because of you. And we had been saying that all along, right? We had been talking, you and me, behind the scenes. How do we make sure that this work continues and it's not tied to one person or two people? Because, Joy Carter has also been really instrumental in this. Well, if she were to ever leave the organization, we need to make sure that the work continues. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be about a person.
Right. Not about a person, and not about that it's done.
Correct.
I mean, it is a continuous journey.
And it doesn't have to look exactly like I would do it, right? Harriet and I have had those conversations about the fact that she created prevention at Prevent+Ed. There are a lot of things that look very similar, and there are a lot of things that look very different. And she could either sit there and be like, oh, well, that's not how I would have done it. Or she can be so incredibly grateful that the work is continuing and that kids are still going to TI, that O to B drug-free is still happening in schools now across the country. She can be excited about that, just like I can be really proud of the fact that the Racial Equity Committee is as strong as ever and that the work is continuing and that PrevenTed is serving more people in different communities all across the community, that Missouri led the nation in the reduction of overdose deaths in all communities, including communities of color. Like, that I'm incredibly proud of. So if I have a little bit of something to do with that, then that makes me really happy.
I think you absolutely have more than a little bit of something to do with that. And it is part of that, creating that infrastructure, creating that foundation for the work to continue. And I can appreciate that it's a little bit of a scary place to step into when we're talking about equity and so many things that, as a leader in a nonprofit organization, that we're constantly working to make happen, that the equity piece doesn't become another thing on the to-do list, but is really just included in every effort that we have, whether that's working on reducing overdose deaths or educating young people or building coalitions or, right? We can keep filling in that blank. And, even in just the few months that I've been sitting in your seat, so to speak, here, that
in your seat,
in my seat now, I have attended several learning opportunities and conversations around equity, and I think that is the truth, that it is about how we continue the work, about how we continue to have those conversations and grow as an organization. And the time that I've been able to spend with the Racial Equity Committee and some of the ideas, we're very excited for some things to come there too. I'm not going to give away the secrets, but the day that we do every May for the Racial Equity Committee, we have some really cool ideas for this year. So.
I'm jealous and excited at the same time.
Awesome. Well, don't be jealous. Maybe you can borrow some of them. We can just
exactly.
continue to share.
That's
continue
exactly
to share
right.
all of our ideas between St. Louis and Birmingham.
That's exactly
here.
right. Yeah.
Awesome. So what do you think you're going to miss the most?
Ugh. Are you trying to make me cry?
No,
here?
I don't want you. I don't, because if you start crying, I'm going to start crying. So let's not cry. But I mean, there's a lot of time and a lot of work that's happened, and
so it is 100% the people, and it's the people at PrevenTed, at the agency. It's the board members. We have some really great board members who really give a shit and trust the leadership and understand what it is that PrevenTed is trying to do and the leader that it is. We have, we have such great community partners. We did together, we did the Stomp Out Addiction Walk
on Sunday.
On this last Sunday.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And, the relationships that we have made, that I have made at Faith Oakville, the different resource tables that were there. I mean, some of those, you feel like, now when I come back, I feel like it's a little bit of a reunion. Right? Like where I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in like a month or whatever. And you take them for granted because these are people that you're with, on Saturday mornings at a blood drive or, at an event on a Tuesday night at a school where you have like 3 people come and like it's the grind but over the time you build the relationships with them. And, this work is hard. Right? It's really hard. Sometimes when you're in admin, you have to be very intentional about making sure that you're still tied into the work because it can feel very bureaucratic and very red tapey. Sometimes you're the bad guy when you're telling people you can't give them a raise, or you're having to let someone go because they're not meeting the standards.
Or you're telling a partner that you can't come to an event, or you can't collaborate with them on something.
Exactly. And so, I mean, it's just, it can be really hard. And also, it's the people that made me show up every day. I know it's the people that make you show up every day. You are and were a huge part of that. I
think it's
the
people, and it's those relationships. I think I think you were spot on there. It is really those relationships with people, and how much everyone does care.
Totally.
And even when you have to kind of get into the grind or do the hard stuff, we're still able to have those relationships that we can laugh with people and be comfortable with too. Yep. And know that we're all still kind of moving things in the same direction.
That's right.
Even when we're sometimes bogged down by it all.
And it's not even people in this field, right?
Oh,
like the fact that, so this is the last time that I'm coming into Hubbard Radio, and it's seeing Jody at the front desk, who I'm sure Jody doesn't even know half of what we talk about on this podcast, but she knows that we come in, she's so kind, she gets the door, she makes us feel very at home. We go into the conference room, Liz and Patty are there to make sure that we have everything we need, getting our guests water and drinks and giving tours when people want to come in and see all the cool guitars hanging, and seeing the radio hosts that many of whom have been on our show, who understand the position that they have and the part that they can play in helping people, find and be connected to resources and hope and recovery and mental health support and all of the things. And so it's like, it's not even the people directly at Prevent+Ed, and it's not even the people in the field. It's like all of the people like you meet along the way, like our employment attorney. I love Rex. I miss Rex.
Shout out to Rex.
I miss Rex so much. And I hated talking to him because it was usually when there was a problem. But damn it, like we have great vendors. It's really all of those people that are contributing to the work.
Right.
Like it's really, I mean, that's what I miss. And yes, of course, I'm finding those in Birmingham. I've also been there for 4 months.
Right. It's hard. It's 4 months is not very long.
It's not. It feels like I've been down there. In some ways, I feel like I've been down there for a long time, especially like when I come back and I know that things are moving on without me, as they're supposed to do. It feels like a long time. And then other times I'm like, it feels like it was yesterday. You know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean.
I'm sure you do.
I've had some similar, feelings and experiences, but not in a different city, just in a different seat, in a different office over the last 4 months. And I've learned quickly all the things, I thought I might have known that I had no idea about. And it's not all bad things. No, it's not that it's these secrets or these horrible things that executive directors have to do, but it definitely is like, oh yeah, we have relationships with some of these people. Oh, that's how that works, or that's what we need to be paying some attention to.
That's why Nichole moved so slow on that, or that's why she made that choice that I thought was really stupid, and I still do.
No, I have not thought that at all. And I've not had any moments where I'm like, what was Nichole doing? No, I have a new appreciation for it all, definitely. So I think those 4 months have been interesting, and a great learning curve.
Totally.
One reflection I have over the last 4 months of even moving into this role, and I feel like the luckiest person ever that I had so long at Prevent+Ed before moving into this role, because it has given me a complete appreciation for people that step into a leadership role that haven't had that time. So, not that I knew...
So true.
Not that I knew every person, outside of the organization, but every employee at Prevent+Ed, I knew before I took on this role.
Yep.
I knew all of our programs. I knew the services we offered. And I still have had such a learning curve. So, I'll stop making you cry and reflect on the past. For now, we might go back there. But, thinking about now, in Birmingham and your role changing even moving forward, how has that transition happened for you? Because while you might know prevention and you know substance use work and you know how to build community and relationships, you're still stepping into a new place, or you've stepped into a new place.
Yeah, it's been really hard. I think what I've been struck by is the things that are so similar. Like you said, like the world of prevention, very similar. Substance use disorder, that's everywhere, right? The community partners, the board members, the staff who are passionate, ragtag, that's all very similar. I think the cultural differences have been really big for me.
Fascinating.
For example, this is a generalization, but a lot of people in Alabama prefer a good old-fashioned phone call. And what you think might take 5 minutes ends up taking about 30 minutes because it is a conversation, and they want to know about your mom and them. That's what they say. How's your mom and them? And they want to know about that, and then they want to give you some context, and then they want to talk about, the solution at hand. Teachers, even when you're scheduling schools, they like a good old-fashioned phone call.
Oh, wow.
We
can't even
get
a hold of teachers on the phone most of the time around here. And we just think, well, everyone's busy, right?
Yeah. And it's it is, everything is a little slower. I don't mean slow. I just mean the pace is a little different because I think there is a stronger value on relationships and connections and who do you know and how can we make sure that it's a good fit and that I feel comfortable with you. So in a lot of ways, the racial equity work that I've done around that personally has really been helpful. And it doesn't matter, what color or race people are. It's just culturally, the culture is very relationship based.
Being able to connect with people.
Yes. Teachers many times want you to come and visit them and actually sit and chat, and they want to know about the programs, and they it's like kind of what we did in the early 90s. It's real. It's when I talk to Harriet and Marilyn and NJ, what we're doing, the program we're building in Birmingham is very similar to kind of how they built the program in the 80s and 90s.
What an awesome blueprint you have, huh?
Yes. But I think that's been my biggest challenge is realizing, like my first month, I came in and I was like, wanting APC to be like Prevent+Ed and wanting the structure and the policies and procedures and the routines and all the things to be the same. And not only are they in two different states with two different cultures, but APC is 16 years old, whereas Prevent+Ed is almost 60. Yeah. Right. Budgets are different. Staff size is different. The funding mechanisms are very similar in how state departments work. Alabama is still pretty paper-based. I think Alabama has done an incredible job rolling out the opioid settlement dollars.
Well, that's good news.
Every quarter, they report out the spending to the different agencies to the penny. Wow. They are very committed to a transparent process, which is pretty incredible. So there's a lot of similarities, and then there are also differences. And the biggest thing that I've had to learn is patience. And that APC is not going to be Prevent+Ed 2.0.
Right.
It's not, nor should it be.
It's still its own thing.
It is its own thing. It is with its own lifeblood, its own donors, its own community, its own staff. And so really trying to figure out, what I've learned to this point in leadership in the field that I can bring with me and what I can learn, what I have learned that I'm like, okay, that needs to stay at Prevent+Ed.
Right.
Like, it's interesting. There's a program that's kind of like Focus here in St. Louis. There's a program in Birmingham, and it's for new executive directors. And I keep toying with the idea about whether or not I should do it. Because technically I'm not a new executive director, but I'm new there.
You are new there, and you're a new executive director for that organization.
Right. And so part of me, like my pride is like, oh, I don't need to do that. I've done this before. I know how to run an organization, blah, 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 blah. But then also I'm like, but it's new. This is new to me, and it's in a new city, and it would help me build relationships, and it would help me, so I think sometimes I struggle with like, how much am I going forward? How much am I staying still? How much am I maybe taking a step back so that I can go forward? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Really examining the things you thought you knew or you think you know. And is that the right move forward?
Yep.
How to do things differently and not have to do everything at once.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, I mean, I know you too well to believe that you aren't going to, create some good change and do things that make sense and continue to grow those efforts in Birmingham. And I also know you well enough that you're going to want it all to happen tomorrow.
I think
yesterday.
I'm driving my team nuts because I just ask a ton of questions.
Huh.
I know.
Shocked.
I'm just constantly asking, like, well, why do we do this? Or have we always done it this way? Do you like doing it that way? Who tells us we have to do it this way? So I'm sure they might tell you that I've made some changes so far, and I'm sure that I have. I have more things that I'd like to roll out, but I really am trying to take a page from the Alabama playbook and slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. I'm trying really hard, and for the most part have been pretty successful at, turning my computer off at like 5:30 or 6 and, slowing down a little bit because the work is going to be there. Mm-hmm. I don't need to run around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Right.
And that's not really how it works down there. They kind of look at me like I'm nuts when I do that. And they look at me nuts for other ways too. So I'd like to minimize those.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a secret. So stop me if I'm pushing too far here on the envelope for you. But, you didn't move to Birmingham just for a professional life change. It was also some personal life stuff. And so if those changes are going to be and should be best for you, you have to slow down a little bit. You can't do everything for APC and do everything that you have in a big vision and make it happen right away.
Right.
And ignore the other parts of your life.
Yeah. I think that, it is not a secret, and it shouldn't be a secret because it's, my sister's like, don't tell anybody you moved for a boy, but it's true. Okay. I did relocate to Birmingham because I was dating somebody and that's where he lives. And it made sense for me to move down there rather than him to move up here or us to meet in the middle in Memphis somewhere. And so for me to honor that and really give it a shot, like I need to have balance,
right?
Which is something that the amazing people in this community here at Prevent+Ed and in St. Louis have been talking to me about for a long time.
Right.
The need for balance. And so now whenever people see me, they're like, oh my God, you look so good. You look so healthy.
Like, what did I look like before?
Yeah, I think Amber the other day was like, something like, you look so hydrated, or like something like very ambery, you know what I mean? And I was like, thanks. It's kind of amazing what like being happy will like do to you, and makes me even more, have more brain space for the work when I am focused on the work.
Yeah.
Balance.
The work is the work.
Balance is an incredible thing.
Isn't it? It's fun.
I know. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that you and I could talk all day.
A long time.
I know that 30 minutes doesn't hardly seem long enough to capture even a snip of the last 17 years. Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with for the PrevenTable? I mean, this was another thing. I mean, we didn't talk about the actual PrevenTable and that being part of your creations within Prevent+Ed, but
so I'll just say so this is my last episode of the PrevenTable. I think the podcast came at an opportunity where we were looking to tell folks about our name, introduce ourselves, reintroduce ourselves as an organization. But more than any of that, it was really a chance to talk about these issues: mental health, substance use, the nonprofit amazing work that is going on in St. Louis, recovery, like to tell those stories in more than 15-second sound bites when the well-meaning news media comes to an event, usually after something terrible has happened, and wants you to talk in 15 seconds about the work. And that's really hard to do. So to have a long format, to have the support of Hubbard vis-a-vis Patty Price, who is just incredible and really pulled for us, we get this space donated. And the fact that I went and said, hey, could we borrow a mic? And they said, we'll do you one better. You can actually have a space every other week for 4 years is pretty friggin' incredible. Views have continuously improved. People seem to really like the TikToks, the TikTok. I just sounded like an old lady. Right. People seem to really like the In the Weeds. It's become a really great platform. And what I like is when people ask to be on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Or when they say, hey, I was listening and I didn't know that, and now I got hooked up with that resource, or now I changed my viewpoint on that. There is a podcast in APC. It's called The Shield. The first episode is actually coming out soon.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. There's going to be some similarities with this format, but also some differences. And I think, to the extent that's possible, I think that having this podcast has really allowed us to further explain and shine a light on substance use disorder, which is something that is really still stigmatized and misunderstood.
Absolutely. There's still so much work that can be done that we are continuing to find ways to make happen. While this might be ending season 4 of the PrevenTable and Nichole's hosting of the PrevenTable, it doesn't mean that the podcast is ending.
That's right.
So if you're thinking about, well, what's next for PrevenTable and in season 5, welcome to Jenny Armbruster, host of the PrevenTable. And I think moving forward into season 5, we're going to be continuing many of these great conversations. I don't think that. I know that. You might not always hear my voice. I'm playing with the idea of maybe some guest host and ways to dive deeper into some different conversations. But we're going to be continuing. We'll be back for season 5 in the early part of 2025 as we were thinking about the future of Prevent+Ed, the future of the St. Louis community, all the work that we're doing. And, we might have Nichole Dawsey back again to talk about how prevention's expanding in Alabama and what's happening there. You never know. We don't know what exactly will happen, so
stay tuned, as they say.
Stay tuned. Huh? But I think 4 years for a podcast has been incredible.
Totally.
And we know that it allows a place for us to stay connected in communities and that these conversations are a little more nuanced. And that's appreciated because we know that this subject has so many different angles and so many different thoughts behind it and so many different people supporting it. It's great to have this platform to share those relationships. So we'll be back for season 5. Stay tuned. And if you like what you've heard so far, make sure that you please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the PrevenTable.
Thanks for joining us at The PrevenTable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at PreventEd.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The PrevenTable.